elections, describing sport as a major tool for national unity, which must be safeguarded and treated as a national asset. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while receiving a 10 master plan for a roadmap to the development of football in Nigeria.
It will help the nation to lay a solid foundation for our domestic football, put in place professionally and efficiently run leagues, entrench a consistent and stable football calendar, and create a value chain which will boost the sports ecosystem.
President Muhammadu Buhari has made a case for the long-standing relations between Nigeria and India to be deepened and expanded so that people and economies can derive maximum benefit. This was while granting audience to an Indian delegation led by the Minister of State for External and Parliamentary Affairs. Meanwhile, the federal government is supporting the development of a world-class animation hub which can absorb a large number of young people in the country. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said this at the Nigeria-India Trade Forum in Abuja.
The cost of production considerably cheaper than in other markets, and after proper training of its raw talent, Nigeria could become a new attractive option for global animation studios looking to access some of their work, following the model established by countries like India.
The collaboration between Nigeria and the United States of America has continued to yield the needed results with the repatriation of another $23 million Abacha loot. The repatriated fund will be used for the completion of 3 major projects across the country.
The President's mandate to the Office of the Attorney General is to ensure that all international recoveries are transparently invested and monitored by civil society organizations.
Consistent with the standard applied to the previously repatriated $311.7 million, reports regarding the expenditure of these additional monies will be public documents. As a key partner deeply invested in Nigeria's success, we will continue to do our part to facilitate the recovery and return of the proceeds of corruption to the Nigerian people.
And the presidency has reacted to an editorial on the Guardian newspaper calling for the impeachment of President Muhammadu Buhari, describing the opinion as antagonistic and unprofessional. A statement by the presidential media aide, Garba, who says impeachment is a process undertaken after high crimes and misdemeanors have been proven, but of late, impeachment has become a partisan weapon wielded by those who have established a track record of hatred towards the president, an attempt to remove from office one who was democratically elected by the people. Nigeria, like other democracies, yearns for an electoral process that meets internationally accepted standards. A legislation seeking to enable the establishment of a National Electoral Process Commission is in the works at the House of Representatives. The bill aims at improving the credibility of the electoral process.
All violators of our electoral laws should be subjected. Don't leave that responsibility to INEC. We have no power to make arrests, and some of the offenders may be INEC officials. We can't prosecute ourselves.
We provide Nigerians the assurance of a legal framework for the investigation, prosecution of electoral offences, and for the general improvement of the electoral process in Nigeria.
And traditional leaders in all 6 states of the Southwest are promising to use their influence to support federal government's health programs, especially as they relate to promoting vaccines and vaccination. This was at the maiden quarterly meeting of the Southwest Traditional Leaders Committee on Primary Healthcare Delivery in Abuja.
From Southwest, we've been able to put ourselves together. And we traditional rulers, we don't want to leave everything to government to be doing. Things we can do for our people. how we can actually help them as far as primary health is concerned.
Because the influence of the traditional rulers on the state governments, on local government, and on development partners is very strong. And if they have to focus attention on these things I just mentioned, human resources, infrastructure, supply chain, then we can get to the objective that we're talking about.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Madabo and Jumai after this timer. Stay with us.
Join us to stop crude oil and product theft at production sites, on the pipeline, at terminals, at the depots, on vessels, at refineries. Help stop crude oil and product theft. Report infringement to www.stopcrudetheft.com. You can also validate genuine purchase at validate.stopcrudetheft.com. Please report and be rewarded. This message is from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious disease. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. Illness-causing germs are everywhere. In unclean bathing water, on clothes, dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capsule. In your bathing water, in your laundry, for surface cleaning, for first aid, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Please Dettol Shore.
Shola, come on, help me. You need to learn, but I'm not interested in learning. How are you going to be part of the business if you don't learn? Just don't understand.
Morning. Anyone for some Lipton?
The rich taste of Lipton awakens body and mind. Let me have a look at your drawings. Son, these designs are amazing. Lipton Yellow Label Tea. Awaken to what really matters.
The Digital Switch Over project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting. It's one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them after production employ several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
Last time when you come, you say you know they fit well. How your body now?
As I go clinic, go do test. Get malaria. As I begin take my malaria medicine, I come begin well. I don't even finish the medicine sef. I say make I save the rest of the medicine for another time. Mama put, wetin be this now?
Na the saving technique wey you no take finish your medicine now say make I use for you. So that when you go come back, when the time go don catch you well, you come back and chop the food.
Mama put, see, which is the way you give me so? Better hunger go come wire my belly.
If you no treat that malaria, e fit come plenty for your body. Now you see that medicine wey you save, you no come reach to treat am.
I don share. Thanks, Mama. I receive sense, so I go do am correct now.
These are a sign of plenty different diseases, plus including malaria.
To test if na malaria, dem go give you correct medicine. If no be malaria, go your first worker go tell you wetin to do.
Now, Federal Ministry of Health and American people then bring una this message.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. On business news, most entrepreneurs are taking strategic steps to develop their businesses as government creates access for market integration.
More on this and other business stories with Comfort Amadou.
The federal government has been evolving ways and implementing policies that will facilitate trade and position Nigerian products and produce in global and regional markets with the aim of making Nigeria a trade and investment hub. Aligning with the drive, entrepreneurs are positioning themselves to take advantage of the opportunities created to expand their businesses and cash flow to remain competitive.
I realize that where we are now, we should be ready for export. That is to say, we should start changing the type of packaging materials we use, quality of our packaging materials, and these are the things that should change our business plan completely to just not selling in Nigeria, but we need to sell in Africa, to sell across the globe generally.
The financial sector is equally developing and improving the framework to deepen financial inclusion toward creating more access to financial services for businesses in the country.
We're a channel for intervention funds, but we're still a bank. So we're still in the business of banking, which is to take deposits from the surplus and then give to the deficit areas.
For export readiness, experts advocate enhanced capacity building and product aggregation in line with global standards.
Doing a PPP with private companies to set up processing facilities that smallholders can actually bring in and aggregate their product and process in those warehouses, and then put these products together and have one off-taker who off-takes these products and export.
In the equities market, stock market closed in red with a trade volume of 204,153,067. Here are the closing figures of all the trades on the floor. With business news, Comfort Amadou.
Well, many thanks, Comfort, for the business package there. Then up next is the newspaper review.
We have some papers in the studio today to, bring you the latest happenings across the country. Let me begin with the Nation's newspaper, and above the masthead we have $33 million power deal. Finance power ministers to face reps. $33 million power deal. Finance power ministers to face reps. Details on page 3. INEC, EFCC disagree on Electoral Offences Commission Bill. You find the details on page 4. Zenith posts 405 billion gross earnings in 6 months. You find that on page 7. NEPSA asked to refund 13.3 billion naira to government coffers. That is also on page 3. And just below the masthead of the Nation newspaper, Nigeria-US son parked on return of 23.4 million Abacha notes. Agreement on asset sharing transfer and management. Find the details on page 2. Flooding. Presidency requires states on ecological funds. Flooding. Presidency requires states on ecological funds. You find the details on page 2. PDP crisis, that's coming from the headlines in the Nation newspaper. PDP crisis, stop bragging, Lamido tells Wiki supporters. With riders, ex-governor falls PDP board chair stand on party leadership. You find the details on page 2. I'm talking about the 10-year master plan, presented to President Muhammadu Buhari. You see the picture story there. Minister of Sports and Youth Development, Mr. Sunday Dari, President Muhammadu Buhari. Chairman Presidential Committee on 10-year Football Development Master Plan, Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima and Sheyi Akinyemi, at the launch of the Football Master Plan at the State House yesterday. And coming down to the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, ASU plans indefinite strike. ASU plans indefinite strike. Congresses ends in 123 branches today. How I killed Islamic cleric Goni by Lance Corporal. How I killed Islamic cleric Goni by Lance Corporal. You find that at the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper. How I killed Islamic cleric Goni by Lance Corporal. You find the details on page 5. Still at the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, police to resolve dispute. Police to resolve dispute. You find the details on page 3. We have more with Madabo.
Okay, we have a couple of I have a couple of papers here. I have Al Jazeera Nigeria Midweek, and of course the Punch newspaper. Can we continue with the Punch newspaper and then see the stories on the front page this beautiful Wednesday morning? There are a couple of stories here. Right at the top, you have Nigeria recovers 86 billion naira stolen oil in 1 month. 86 billion naira stolen oil in 1 month. Details of that on page 22. Right under it, we have recovered of loot hits 334 million US dollars. United States condemns corruption. Details of that on page 10. And then as we move through, we come to page 20. ASU, parents propose 10,000 naira support levy for universities. Parents propose 10,000 naira support levy for universities. And then coming down to the center of the page, we have the big story here. Before then, there is the window story right there beside the Punch plate. PSC workers threaten strike. Commission suspends recruitment. That's Police Service Commission. Workers threaten strike. Commission suspends recruitment. Details on page 9. Presidential arrest. Tinubu, Wike meet in UK. PDP talks wobble. On page 2. And the riders are rivals important for 2023 election victory. Amechi lukewarm presidential candidates men. This coming from presidential candidates men, that's Wike's men, saying Rivers State is important for 2023 election victory. Wike has not told us he is leaving PDP, but he is not in Nigeria, says governor's associate. These are all stories associated with this very big story on the Punch newspaper talking about Tinubu, Wike meeting UK, PDP talks wobble. Details on page 2. The picture story is about a truck that crashes into Lagos about an expressway bridge and causes gridlock. Details of what really happened can be gotten on page 12. And then coming down to the foot of the Punch newspaper this morning, we have these 3 stories. And the one on page 5 says FCCPC, that's a Federal Competition Consumer Protection Commission director, dies fighting female colleague. And then probe begins. Page 5. On page 9, Buhari, Sultan condemned Yoruba Islamic cleric's murder. And finally, on pages 4 and 5, 12 NNPP supporters, passengers die in Nasarawa Ondo crashes. So details of this can be gotten on pages 4 and 5. Now let's take a look at the Al Jazeera Nigeria Midweek. But before we do that, Juma, let's just look a little bit into this story of Abuja recovered loot. That is 334 million US dollars, in which the United States condemns, corruption. You recall here we talked about this, and we talked about the loot when the minister was here, the Minister of Justice, and then we x-rayed this, and then saw what really the questions are, what really come into it, and what they are being used for, and this another recovery. You recall also that we talked about the fact that the Buhari administration was the only administration that was able to recover so much loot, and that's because of the confidence the international community has in Nigeria. So with this 23, as we learned, it seems as if the money is going to be judiciously used to defer the completion, I think, of the second major bridge. And then the Abuja, Kano Expressway and the Lagos-Abuja Expressway. Lagos-Ibadan, that is Expressway. And that's really a good feat, because I know Buhari once said that that was in 2015, 2016. The confidence the international community has in him and his administration, prompted the international community to keep releasing these funds and then for their judicious use.
And now we're getting $23.4 million. That's quite a huge amount.
Really.
Yes.
Can we have the Al Jazeera Nigeria, the midweek, and then see the stories on the front page? Right. Right under the masthead of this very paper, we have the following stories. One is the EFCC opposes establishment of Electoral Offences Commission. Details on page 10. And then on page 27, Shekaro versus Kwankwaso, tussle that led to separation. On page 26, Northerners shouldn't dominate top PDP seats, BOT chair insists. Get details of that on page 26. Moving down a little, the big story on this newspaper is terrorism, banditry. That's the topic. And your time's up, Buhari wants. Your time is up, Buhari wants. And then the writer says we must fight, take fight terrorists. And the second one is praises Indian training for his military success. Get details of that on page 8. I guess this is coming from the visit of the Indian, the minister's visit to the president yesterday. Moving down a little, or rather on the left-hand side of the page, or right-hand side of the page, right on the screen, right there, we have story on page 13 that says, Buni offers automatic employment to children of slain Yobe cleric. Buni offers automatic employment to children of slain Yobe cleric. On page 11, federal government urges African countries to increase regional manufacturing capacity. Down a little on page 11 still, we have police rescue 18 kidnapped passengers, hunters in Ocean State. And finally, some few stories here to the left side of the page, as you can see on the screen. We have on page 8, Delta government opens register for sexual crime convicts and others. Page 12, Maiden Edo Film Festival receives 1,551 entries from 94 countries. This is an international event, it seems like. Maiden Edo Film Festival receives 1,551 entries from 94 countries. Page 9. Now, finally, on page 22, borrowing by oil firms from banks hit 5.93 trillion naira amid losses. Borrowing from oil firms. Borrowing by oil firms from banks hit 5.93 trillion naira amid losses. Get details of that on page 22 of the Al Jazeera Nigeria midweek. That's the stories we have on Al Jazeera and the Punch and of course the Nation newspaper.
Yes. From the ASU strike, we're seeing Congress has already ended in 123 branches today, and ASU is saying it plans to have this strike indefinitely.
Yeah, that's what ASU says. It seems like it's bent on moving on with the strike. But the other, heartwarming story is coming from, still on the topic, is coming from the National Parent Teachers Association that is proposing here, as we see on the Punch newspaper and some other papers which carried it today, that the parents proposed 10,000 naira support levy.
Seem to see, a lot of unrest, a lot of crime going on. I'm not saying they are criminals, but staying at home idle, it's just not good for these children because they are hyper, they are a new generation. They need to be actively involved in doing something, and I think the parents are really helping there. We hope that they accept it so that our kids can go back to school. Last week we talked about flooding here. We discussed flooding, and now the presidency is saying it's quarreling, the state on ecological fronts. What are they doing with these funds? What efforts are they doing to reduce the impact of flooding on the people and the suffering the people have to go through every year? We discussed this last week.
We did quite okay, and this is a perennial thing. Every year it happens, flooding here, flooding there, lives lost, properties destroyed, and a lot of other negativities about all these things. But I think the subnational should, be a little bit proactive in this, and jettison the issue of leaf materials anytime there is flood, and people wait for that. I think it's high time they hit the directive of the president, and then use ecological funds judiciously, and then try as much as possible to reduce the effect of flooding. At least let's hope next year there wouldn't be so much of that, given the fact that we think and we hope they are going to really make the best use of ecological funds.
So if you want
on the other side too, the people should really accept that and move it on. So they should also assist themselves in that regard. Now, that's the newspaper review. We'll take a break now. Stay with us.
Obi, what exactly are you dodging? COVID now. You are very funny. Is this how you have been dodging every cough and sneeze?
Yes, my guy. The thing don't serious.
Have you taken your COVID-19 vaccine?
Leave that matter for Matthias. I have heard plenty things.
Beggy, I have taken my complete dose of the vaccine, and as you can see, I am okay.
Why you come still dey wear mask?
To protect everyone from getting the virus. It's good to dey practice the protective measures as the vaccine work now to stop you from dying from the COVID-19 infection.
This your explanation makes sense.
Go and get your COVID-19 vaccine. It is available in most public health centers and some approved private hospitals.
COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Protect yourself and loved one. Take the vaccine. Stay alive. Let us all celebrate safely and responsibly.
Obi the Dodger.
Abejo, I'm going to get vaccinated now.
This message is from the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, NCDC, NPHCDA, and partners.
Bye, Mom.
He's going to play in this weather. Why did you let him go? He might fall ill. And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he know roses? To protect our family from illness causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with germ defense gives you protection. Rainy season brings a lot of germs. Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol Soap.
Join us to stop crude oil and product theft at production sites, on the pipeline, at terminals, at the depots, on vessels, at refineries. Help stop crude oil and product theft. Report infringements to www.stopcrudetheft.com. You can also validate genuine purchase at validate.stopcrudetheft.com. Please report and be rewarded. This message is from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious disease. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. Illness-causing germs are everywhere. In unclean bathing water, on clothes, dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capsule. In your bathing water, your laundry, for surface cleaning, for first aid, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Use Dettol Shore.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels. Leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
We are all Nigerians.
Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring progress and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
You're welcome back, and to begin our discussion, let's take this background report by Joseph Ose.
Rotavirus is the disease that spread easily among infants and young children. Infection of the virus takes place through contact with unclean hands after using the toilet, and effects include severe diarrhea, vomiting, fever, and abdominal pain. Children who get rotavirus disease can become dehydrated and may need to be hospitalized, which may even lead to death. Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaibu, of recent described rotavirus as one of the leading causes of diarrhea disease in the world, responsible for over 40% of diarrhea in children. He says Nigeria has the second highest number of deaths from rotavirus, accounting for 14% of all deaths worldwide. Annually, approximately 50,000 deaths occur in children under 5 years in Nigeria as a result of the infection. Experts front vaccination as best bet for protection with vaccines such as Rotatex RV5, which is given in 3 doses at 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months of age, and Rotatrex RV1 duly recommended. Few days ago, Nigeria flagged off the rotavirus immunization meant for babies from age 6 and 14 weeks, expected to save 110,000 babies from untimely death in the next 10 years.
The rotavirus vaccine is sold up to $100 per dose. Here in Nigeria, starting today, will be free of charge in any public health facility of the country.
The questions remain: how available are the vaccines to healthcare facilities across the country, especially at the grassroots? And are there enough sensitization to avert vaccine hesitance and negative myths as experienced in the past? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will take a critical look at the virus, its impact, and how prepared is Nigeria to curb its spread.
Well, many thanks, Joseph Watson, there with the background report. And we have our guests who are already seated here in order to discuss this very important topic this morning. And, here in the studio, we have Dr. Faisal Shuaib, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Shuaib.
Good morning, viewers. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And we also have right here in the studio Dr. Eduardo Soledades, UNICEF Nigeria Chief of Health. Welcome to Good Morning. I hope I mentioned that I'm pronouncing it properly.
You are indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
And also seated in the studio is Dr. Isaya Vatsa. He's Acting Executive Secretary, FCT Primary Healthcare Board. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
We also have joining us well, but not available for now from Kano, Dr. Rota Kazadi Mulombo. He's the WHO country representative here in Nigeria.
Okay, now while we are with a connection with Kano to get on board, Walter Kazadi Mulombo. Let's move on and then see what we will be able to make with the remaining times we have on the remaining time we have that is on this program. Rota, I will start with you, Dr. Faisal. Rota is not like malaria, diarrhea, measles and some other commonly known diseases which you're used to, brought up with, we saw them, we are managing them. When we say Rota, somebody start asking, what is Rota?
Right. So Rota is actually from a Latin word that describes the nature of the virus. The virus is round in shape, so Latin word for round is Rota. So that's where they got the name Rota virus. But in actual fact, Rota virus disease is very, very common. When you see a child with diarrhea, that is to say watery stools, chances are that in close to 50% of cases, half of the cases, it is due to rotavirus disease, right? So in a large number of cases that you see children having diarrhea, it is due to rotavirus. It's just that maybe we'll not call it rotavirus disease. We'll just call it watery stools, or we'll call it diarrhea. But it is a very common, highly infectious disease that occurs quite widely in Nigeria, just like the introductory documentary talked about. It is quite common in Nigeria and responsible for up to 50,000 deaths in children under 5 on an annual basis in Nigeria. So it is a big deal.
If it's a big deal, I mean, why will it be a big deal ever since? But now, why the hype? Why the noise? UNICEF is coming into it, World Health Organization is coming into it, and a lot of other strong organizations are really moving in, and then insisting that nations and countries must, put it in their own routine immunization programs and the rest of it. Why now and why this?
Yeah, because it is because the rotavirus vaccine is so effective, right? So here we are for several decades, right? We are aware of the way this vaccine can work. However, before it is introduced into Nigeria, we have to fulfill some of the requirements. For example, even our routine immunization coverage has to reach a particular level, because you don't want to introduce a vaccine and then it is not well utilized. So in the course of the last few years, we've been able to attain those routine immunization coverages, and then we've been able to fulfill some critical criteria. And of course, the burden of disease is very, very obvious. So all of these constellation of requirements have now fallen in place thanks to the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, the Honorable Minister of Health. We've been able to advocate to our global partners and our donors, and they've been able to see that there's a justification to bring this vaccination into our program. So it is a huge investment on the part of the federal government and our donors, but it is a worthwhile investment.
We're talking about international partners and international donors. Let's bring in Dr. Eduardo. Dr. Eduardo, we saw you in the report before the program started, and can you tell us how many types of vaccines is acceptable here in Nigeria? Is it the same the world over? And how is it being accessed by governments?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. I think here in Nigeria, the government and Federal Ministry of Health and NPHCDA have been doing a great job to really introduce new vaccines and to have a very solid calendar for vaccination for children. At this moment with Rota, it will be like 18 antigens, so different vaccines that we have available for children, but as well for adults, like for example, tetanus or COVID-19. It has been a challenge to really expand the capacity of the country to store these vaccines, because as you know, many of these vaccines, they need cold, they need like particular needs for storage. So the country has expanded that massively. Now they have the capacity to get these vaccines. And regarding the timing and for the calendar for children, I think we have a very sound, safe timing for the vaccines. Rotavirus is going to be administered at 6 weeks, 10 weeks and 14 weeks, but as well to any children under 1 year old that didn't receive it previously. Before Monday, the vaccine was only available at private sector and some private facilities. As I was commenting, it's a really quite expensive vaccine in other countries. But here, starting on Monday, it will be fully for free in the Northwest, North Central and Northeast, and next month as well in the Southern states. So I think this is really a good landmark for the country.
Rota, yeah. The acting executive secretary of FCT Primary Healthcare Board, and you're right at the center here. And of course, any other meaningful good example that could be given about this will be from your own domain. Tell us, this vaccine and this vaccination in the FCT, for instance, how is it going to be? What are the plans on the ground, for instance, in order to reach out to as many children as you can? I know children, whenever there are things like this, and if they are really new and novel, especially when they have the name Rota, not measles, or whatever, again, some eyebrows will be raised. What are the plans by the FCT in order to address this issue and get this vaccine, far and wide?
Thank you very much. The good news is that it was flagged off in FCT on Monday. And the good news also is that as at yesterday, the vaccines are already at the facility level. Have been distributed to primary healthcare facilities, and it's free of charge. And the good news is also that people have already been sensitized to take up this vaccine. The good news also, I always want to tell you the good news.
It's all about good news this time around.
The good news about the vaccine is also the fact that it is free of charge, cost nobody any trouble in FCT in terms of giving it to the children. And then the fact that this vaccine is available, to be available at the doorstep of the patient. And it will also beyond putting it at the facility level, we will also have outreach services that will be providing, taking this vaccine to the doorstep of the families. The other important thing is that different stakeholders have been sensitized to take on this vaccine. This is going to be a different ballgame in terms of acceptability. And then, of course, any parent that experienced diarrhea in his children is eager to take up this vaccine. This is the vaccine that will solve the problem. And also the bad news. You don't allow your child to have diarrhea before you talk about the vaccine. It is only when you are taking the vaccine that you can be protected. And then also the bad news about it is that it cannot be treated with antibiotics.
Okay.
So the best bet is the vaccination, other hygienic practices, hand washing, care of the layer, environmental sanitation, and host of other things, and also taking other vaccines. I always want to use my
other vaccines like
other vaccines that routine immunization.
Okay.
Routine immunization so that you can protect yourself from other diseases, common diseases in our environment. The other thing I also want to tell people about, I always use myself as an example. Anytime I hear about vaccine, particularly for adults, even for children, I use my own children as a first case. Even this COVID, when I take the vaccine, I don't even tell my family, I took the vaccine myself first, because I know that the best way to produce vaccine, it is to protect you from the disease. And even the way the vaccines are developed. And I think this is the information the public need to know about vaccines. They are produced from a product that will stimulate your system to produce an antibody against that disease. And once it produces an antibody against that disease, if you come in contact with the disease, you'll be protected. And for the community to be protected properly, we need a larger population to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity, what we call herd immunity, 70-80%. And the good news is also FCT. Very soon, virtually all the children that will be taken to our facility will be vaccinated. This vaccine is available already in the facility. We are also going to expand to private sectors. Private health facilities will also make them available. We have over 400 health facilities that provide vaccine innovation and to be available all over.
Free of charge.
Free of charge. I think people need to know that it is free of charge.
But Professor, we need to identify a disease before we start talking about vaccine, and this disease has already been established. Most people think when children are purging and having diarrhea, they think it's the teething process. And how long does this Rota manifest? How long does it take before it will manifest? And how is the impact on it on the child? And what do the parents need to do to bring it down to the barest minimum before they vaccinate the child?
So first up, it's always better to give the vaccine. Like they say, prevention is better than cure. So it's very, very critical that once the child is at 6 weeks, you go for the other vaccines that you're already aware of, and seize the opportunity to also take the rotavirus at 6 weeks, at 10 weeks and 14 weeks, right? So before the child reaches the age of 1 year, you should have visited the health facility 5 times for the different routine immunization vaccines. That needs to be very clear to every mother, every father, every guardian in Nigeria, that you have to go to the health facility 5 times to get the childhood immunizations, and now we've introduced the rotavirus vaccine. Why is it so important that we herald this progress in our ability to protect our children? Because rotavirus is a virus that exists all over our communities. It's there in spaces, it's there on surfaces.
Where do you get it from?
Actually? So it is a naturally occurring organism, right? Just like any bacteria, right? So it's a virus that is available. So the most common way to contract it is through food and water, right? And also when you touch a surface, right? This is why it is most common in children that are aged from 3 months to about 35 months, around the time that they are beginning to play around and touch surfaces that might be contaminated. And once they touch a surface that has the virus, then they can put their hands in their mouths and exactly at the first point, then they get infected, and then after about 2 days they start having fever, they start vomiting, and then thereafter they start experiencing diarrhea. So diarrhea is watery stools. Now once they start experiencing those types of symptoms, the usual thing, like you mentioned, is people wondering is just teething. But in a number of cases, it could be due to other diseases, right? It could be that the child has malaria or pneumonia, and diarrhea might be one of the manifestations. But for rotavirus infection, you begin to see that the child starts getting dehydrated, right? The child gets weak. Sometimes the child will be crying, and there will be no tears because they don't even have adequate water. Exactly.
That is when I was doing the research. No tears.
No tears. That's it. And then you begin to see that their lips are very dry, and that is why it's very important what Dr. Vasta has mentioned, that you continue to do exclusive breastfeeding even when the child is having diarrhea. You make sure that you continue to observe hand hygiene. You continue to make sure that you give ORS, oral rehydration solution, along with zinc. It's very, very important that to protect our children from this disease, that we observe good personal hygiene, environmental sanitation, because this is a disease that occurs in environments that are not clean. This is why even young adults also contract rotavirus. The only thing is that it may not be as severe. Exactly. Well, it could be. Exactly. Absolutely. Those are some of the causes of diarrhea and vomiting even in adults. But when you're an adult, of course, it's too late for you to take the vaccine. That is why it's important for you to take it at the points that we've listed.
You said there's no cure. So if an adult gets it and we cannot take the vaccine, what happens to that?
Well, the good thing about it is that it is, because it's a virus, it is eventually self-limiting in an adult, right? So you get sick, right? But over time, if you take the right types of, supplementary measures, such as taking oral rehydration solutions, you rest, then over time your body's immune system will overcome it. But for the child, it can be the beginning of the end for that child if the child is not well managed.
Dr. Faisal, let's just dwell on that a little bit. Some further clarification will go a long way in explaining diarrhea generally. Diarrhea, looking at it from the point of view of just knowing it to be diarrhea as we used to know among children, among adults, and whatever. The normal reason being given is some hygienic reasons, bad hygiene, and then it's often related to bacteria generally, because you can have it as maybe part of symptoms of cholera and some other things. But here we are today talking about a diarrhea. Diarrhea-like disease caused by a virus, and that, as she said, it may not have any cure as such, but the virus is around to just stop it from spreading. Explain further for us and give us further clarification to differentiate this very rotavirus and its own symptoms as it is from the normal diarrhea we used to have, especially the ones that affect the adults and the one that affect the children, which is not rota.
Right. So the distinction between rotavirus disease and any other type of diarrhea, for example, in an adult, right? A typical adult, if you're having diarrhea, it's probably related to a meal. And this is why it is important that she calls it food poisoning, because the onset of the diarrhea and the vomiting is linked to ingestion of food that even you realize that, you know, maybe that is the source of the problem. And then, of course, there are indications that maybe other people that ate the food are also suffering from the same symptoms, right? That's typically what happens when you have food poisoning, right? But for the diarrheal disease that we see in children, typically a child will react to any illness with diarrhea. That is why they call it diarrheal disease. Okay. Yeah, that's it's a normal feature with children, that when they are sick, you know, when the child starts having diarrhea, you know that something is going on. But out of this multitude of diarrheal diseases, we've been able to do investigations, right? So when you take the diarrheal stools, when you take fluids from the guts of the child, we've been able to grow this virus. That is why we got to realize that, you know, a large proportion of diarrhea may be due to illnesses, right? But there's a significant proportion, close to half of these diarrheas, are actually caused by this very naughty round-shaped virus that we call the Rota virus. Now, if the diarrhea is non-specific, for example, it is due to malaria, pneumonia, or any other disease, once you treat the malaria or the pneumonia, then the diarrhea stops. So you have now treated the root cause of the problem. But we've now been able to recognize that, hey, with those diarrheal diseases that are due to Rota virus infection, we now need to find a way of protecting the children from contracting the virus, because we do know that there is no known cure for viral diseases, right? So your best approach is to prevent it. And this is why we've been able to engineer a vaccine that protects against the virus. How does it do that? That is what Dr. Vata has sort of alluded to. So when you give the vaccine to the child, it uses the natural immune system, the natural systems of the child, right, to develop specific proteins that we call antibodies, right? Once it develops those antibodies, the antibodies are able to now remember the next time the actual virus infects the child. So what you are giving to the child as the vaccine is something that looks like the naturally occurring virus. Okay. Right? So that now, but it is not in a dose, it is not in the form that will cause the disease. Usually it is either the killed form of the actual disease, cause of the virus, or a form that is already weakened. And what it does when it is injected or dropped into the body of the child, it doesn't cause disease. Instead, the body will now find a way to overcome it. So by overcoming it with the antibodies, the body now knows what to do the next time the real culprit comes. It is all ready, and then it destroys the virus before it can cause disease. So what vaccines, rotavirus vaccine, measles vaccine, hepatitis vaccine, they work in all similar ways. They just use our natural body system, trains our body's natural system to fight the actual disease when it does occur. And this is very, very critical, because when people talk about, the white men want to kill us, that is why they are giving us vaccines, it is ridiculous, because even before, you know, these vaccines were brought in this form, Africans already took herbs to protect against some diseases that they are already aware of, right? The only thing that is different now is that the formulation is different in a way that makes it easier for us to do it on a larger scale. So vaccines, since the advent of history, are the most important public health intervention that we know.
Okay, let's hear from...
Our Zoom is ready?
Yeah. Okay, the Zoom is ready. That's Dr. Walter Kazadi Mulumbo. Kazadi is joining us from, Kano. He is the World Health Organization country representative in Nigeria. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you.
Good. Let's go along and then move on with you and then hear your own perspective or your own views about this very topic we're discussing this morning. As you should have known, it's a rotavirus and then it's a vaccine, and it's used in Nigeria, having been launched, and then how people are going to receive it. You reside in Kano. You are in Kano right now, I must say. And then being in Kano, a very cosmopolitan city, and where we think there are lots of people that may be affected by this, lots of children that may be affected by Rota disease. How is the story in Kano? And then so far, given its cosmopolitan nature, how are people receiving this message of vaccination against Rota disease?
Thank you very much for having me on this emission. And sorry, I joined late. I've been having issues to join the meeting since early morning. I came to Kano with the purpose of meeting the Emir of Kano and the Executive Governor. Partly it's to support the Scales 3.0 implementation, when Kano is among the states that have done well. So I'm expecting that Kano will do well also in terms of introduction of rotavirus vaccine, which is very, very important. I see the city's cosmopolitan is pretty much populated, and looking around, you might expect that something that the real diseases in infants and children should be something common, and that's one of the messages I'm going to emphasize with His Royal Majesty this morning and the Executive Governor. Kano has a history in terms of addressing vaccine hesitancy from the time of polio, when they got on board with help of the Sultan of Sokoto and Emir of Kano. Things change. So I'm going to carry this message to encourage the Emir of Kano and the governor and the authorities to really encourage the population here to bring children to get rotavirus vaccine, because rotavirus is a major cause of diarrhea disease in children, and if we can scale up this vaccination soon, we will avert a lot of unnecessary infant and children death in a place like Kano, where I am. So I look very much forward to this visit, which will start in the next 1 hour and a half or so, to bring this message over.
Okay, just a little. Let me just make a little follow-up there. Given the antecedents and the history of Kano as regards, vaccine and its acceptance and reception in Kano, how equipped are you to see to it that your visit becomes really fruitful? What are you going to really put on the table that will look as a step different from steps being taken in the past, in which case would yield something more positive than maybe some resistance, God forbid?
Sorry, I didn't get your question very well. Would you like to repeat, please?
Now, what I'm saying is, what are you going to do differently now in order to address the issue of hesitation and resistance in Kano, given its own history as a place where people hardly would accept such vaccines just easily, I must say?
They've just done it with COVID-19 vaccination. Kano was among the states that were lagging behind, and they are among the 4 states that are showing the way. We indeed are looking forward to learning more on what Kano did differently, and I'm sure it will also apply to rotavirus vaccination. And this is why my visit to the Emir of Kano today, this morning, is very, very important. I'm going to encourage him and the council to really get on board, use what they've done for polio, use what they've just shown for COVID-19 vaccination, and I'm sure it's new, it's unfolding, but it's worth pushing because it will make a huge difference in this city of over 20 million population, and also give an example to the rest of Nigeria that it can be done. If it can be done in Kano, it can be done everywhere. So, and we are really confident that with our discussion, the Emir of Kano and other traditional leaders, and I'm aware of the role they play for polio, for COVID-19 vaccination, I'm sure they will help a lot in this new campaign. And plus, the vaccine is free, so why not go for it? Because it will save Nigerian children.
Yes, but Malumba, I know you picked Kano because of the population there and the issues we must have had with the polio vaccine. Then you have a real interest in Nigeria and how our health system works. This vaccine has been introduced into the Nigerian health system, but they say it is in short supply. So how can Nigeria procure this, and what are the necessary plans that has been put in place for procurement of this vaccine to be able to handle the kind of population we have in a place like Kano?
Yeah, thank you. The issue of the vaccine short supply is a global one, but I don't believe the rotavirus vaccine has an issue to supply a country like Nigeria. The vaccine is available, but alongside this introduction, we've been supporting the Nigerian government to build capacity for local manufacture of vaccine. So, and you know that WHO is selected Nigeria among the 6 countries for introduction of mRNA technology. This is just an entry point to Nigerian manufacturing other vaccine as well. And I'm aware that some partners are coming as soon as tomorrow, if I'm correct, and they are coming to continue to further that discussion, and we will be happy to support the national authority, the NTA, CDA, Ministry of Health, and other stakeholders to get really the capacity to produce vaccine locally, because Nigeria as a market, as a population, Nigeria is several countries. One, if we can do it, we can get it right with Nigeria, I think Africa as a whole will be better off. And it's an investment worth pursuing, and in the long run, it will pay off. So WHO, UNICEF, other partners, we are really on board and eager to push Nigeria to get that capacity to produce vaccine and another medical product locally. I believe Nigeria has a capacity to do that.
Dr. Malumbo, thank you so much. Let me come back to the studio here. Dr. Eduardo, let's have your take on that question I threw to him.
Yes, thank you. I would like to complement that at this moment we have 3.8 million of doses of vaccines for Rota at country, that we are receiving next month another 1.4 million doses, and by the end of the year we'll have 19 million doses of vaccines, of rotavirus vaccines, stored in the country. At this moment, for some key vaccines, there are not issues at global level. For example, this year we don't have any issue with having COVID-19 vaccines available at country level. However, Dr. Molungo and WHO is right, we want as well to change the narrative. So to create capacities and to support the government to develop capacities at country level to develop vaccines. Nigeria, as you know, was producing vaccines until 15 years ago and since like 100 years ago. So the capacity to do it is there. But I would like to go further. It's not only about having the supply of vaccines ready, it's about how is our capacity to deliver these vaccines to the children and to the adults that they need that. And for that, what we need is a strong primary healthcare system. So it's not enough having the vaccines in our warehouses. What we need is to have human resources, doctors, nurses, chiefs, VCMs, voluntary committee mobilizers, engagement of traditional leaders. What we need as well is a strong supply chain. What we need as well is good data to know where we have what we call the zero-dose children, the children that they don't have any single vaccine. We need to know where these children are so we can reach them and we can actually improve the vaccination coverage. And as well, we need good governance and leadership in the health sector. So what we need, that's why, for example, last week, jointly with Dr. Faisal, with the Minister of Health, WHO and partners, we launched the Primary Healthcare Leadership Challenge to incentivize the governors and the states to really invest in primary healthcare. Because if you don't invest in human resources, in capacities, even if you have the vaccines in country, you're not going to be able to deliver those to the children that they need it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eduardo. Dr. Isi Hayovacha, let's hear more from you about what Eduardo said. We're talking about spread now. We're talking about reaching out. We're talking about having more children vaccinated against Rota disease. And the vaccine is free, as you earlier said, and it is available as being put forward by the figures we have, and it's going to remain available and free as much as the exercise, as far as the exercise goes. What is the reach, if I may ask, what's the reach and how aggressive for you in moving into the hinterland? The others see the urban, settlements may not be so much of a problem. But reaching out, as he said, a strong primary healthcare system is very important. What's the reach? What's the spread?
Coincidentally, as of yesterday, I was in a facility, a very remote facility in Kwale Area Council, and the vaccine was already at that facility. But beyond that, we just don't want to just talk about being in the facility. We are reaching out to the families, to the community leaders, the stakeholders in the community to understand this is another gift from the government to the children.
Okay.
The future of tomorrow, to be protected from diarrhea disease that is deadly. One other thing is people have to know that this is a deadly disease. Rota virus, diarrhea related to Rota virus is deadly. And the only solution to it is to be protected by being vaccinated. And once a child is vaccinated with other measures, exclusive breastfeeding, proper hygiene, and a host of other measures that protect that child from other infections, the child will be protected and will grow well. Another thing that we also do is to also sensitize using traditional institutions, religious leaders, women leaders, caregivers to be actively involved in ensuring that the children are taken to the facility for vaccination. And then we are on ourselves in terms of leadership challenge. The FCT administration is really committed to this cause. In fact, that is why they co-funded the launching of this program in FCT, and the FCT being the first place where it was launched, we are taking off. We are taking off to reach out to the public, to the children with this vaccine. And I'm also very pleased to hear that the vaccine supply will be continuous. So the issue of challenge of shortfall is not even there. The issue is that people should bring their children and be vaccinated. And if you reach any facility, you don't have a discovery code there, please reach out to us. I can even give a number that you can reach out to us in FCT. Maybe I can just call the number and so that they reach out to us. You don't have any child to go to a facility in the list.
Call the number.
080 33 142 463.
Again?
080 33 142 463. You can reach out to us. If you are taking your child for vaccination and they are telling the vaccine is not there, please reach out to us. We arrange and bring the vaccine to your community. Yes. We don't want any child to be missed in this exercise.
Every child
should be reached with the vaccine.
There is this issue of immunization. Generally, we were brought up to find that health workers go from house to house, knocking at doors, asking for children for vaccination, and then tagging and numbering and putting the house in order and then marking it. That's for statistic purposes, and that's another way of reaching out. Dr. Faisal, when we come to this level, I didn't hear any one of you talking about, this house-to-house issue. We've all been referred to, primary healthcare systems, take your child, not that we meet you at home and do this. Is rotavirus different from this? Is the approach not in this relation? Is it because it's between 6 to 14 weeks or thereabout? How is it? Is there going to be any house-to-house thing, or how is it going to be? Talking about the primary healthcare system and the strength of it has been alluded to by Eduardo here.
Yes, so there are two different ways of getting vaccines to kids. So the rotavirus vaccine is being added to what we call the list of childhood immunizations, the routine immunizations, the same type that your parents, my parents, took us to the health facility for. So it is normal that when a child is born, the parents should take the child to the health facility, right? Like I mentioned, 5 times before 1 year. And then by the time the child is about 15 months, then the child has another vaccine that they need to take. That is what we call routine immunization. The house-to-house campaigns are supplemental to the routine immunizations, right? So for instances where we're not able to reach kids, we now organize a campaign to reach them. Those campaigns are very expensive. They are not normative. They are not the normal approach. The normal approach for any responsible parent, any parent that understands the importance of vaccination, is that once you give birth to a child, it's part of the responsibility of parenthood that you take the child to the nearest health facility. And there's no place in Nigeria where you will walk more than 5 kilometers or travel more than 5 kilometers and you don't find a health facility, right? But with this introduction, we are putting them in the health facilities. But apart from taking the kids to the health facilities, even as part of this routine, there's what we call outreaches, right? So every health facility encourages people to come to the health facilities to take their vaccination. But that health facility also, usually about once a week, plans outreach sessions where they go to the communities with the vaccines, with their cold boxes, making sure that the vaccines are kept in the temperatures that will keep them potent. And they go to the health facilities and give go to the communities and give the vaccination. Sometimes the site of this outreaches are the palaces or the compounds of the traditional leaders. This is why traditional leaders are very, very key when it comes to primary healthcare. Only yesterday, we hosted the Southwest Traditional Leaders Committee on Primary Healthcare Delivery, led by His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, along with paramount rulers from 6 Southwest states. We had an opportunity to look at how we can deepen the conversations, the collaborations that we've experienced with the Northern Traditional Leaders Committee that were very, very key in the eradication of white polio viruses. So those lessons are what we're replicating in the Southwest under the leadership of the Oni of Ife, who showed very, very strong leadership. He demonstrated his passion. It was a very, very successful meeting because we're able to align around how government can utilize the platform of traditional leaders to reach the people, because we all know in Nigeria that the traditional leaders, the religious leaders, are the custodians of our cultures, the things that we hold very dearly. And when people hear from their traditional leaders, they know this is good. And we realize that we've not been doing enough of this, right? This is why we had the issues with Kano. Right now, Kano is a completely different place, right? It's absolutely, people understand that nobody is trying to poison you, nobody is trying to stop you from being vital. So when we came with the COVID-19 vaccination, right, Kano took off like an airplane, doing very, very well. And I hope that other states that are not doing as well, will learn lessons from states that are doing very well. Now, over 40 million Nigerians have taken the vaccines. And they're doing very well. I am sure you guys have also taken the vaccines, right? Within the boosters. Absolutely. 40 million Nigerians cannot be wrong when it comes to COVID-19, right? So we want to have these vaccinations completely rolled out. We're now moving not only from the health facilities, we're going settlement to settlement, door to door, using the Skills 3.0 to make sure that people have the opportunity. So we're not looking at just coverage, but also equity, that no matter where you live or work in Nigeria, you have the opportunity of access to COVID-19. But also the health workers are going with other vaccines, including the Rota virus vaccine. In the next few weeks, they'll be going to houses going to marketplaces, motor parks with the vaccines. So we're delivering an integrated approach when it comes to this vaccination. So it's not just the COVID-19, but it's also the opportunity to deliver a broader range of services, including vitamin A, supplementation, we're deworming kits, using this opportunity of COVID-19 to make sure that Nigerians have access to primary healthcare services.
Yes, it's all about willpower, and Dr. Eduardo has said government must invest in primary health care, because at the hinterland, at the subnationals, that is where the primary health care comes into focus, because that is where the bulk of the patients are. I was listening to you on the radio when I was coming to the office yesterday. You were complaining about lack of human resources, not being enough.
I was drawing attention.
Yeah, you were drawing attention to it. I was listening, and they said not being enough. So what are you doing on that? And apart from this, bringing them together to talk to them about all this immunization, getting it to the people that matters, are they walking the talk?
Yes. So if you recall, in March of this year, the Federal Ministry of Health convened through the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency the PHC Summit, wherein we brought our donors, development partners, private sector, traditional religious leaders to align behind a vision for primary healthcare in Nigeria, where you don't have to go more than a kilometer to find a primary healthcare center that can deliver good quality primary healthcare services. You go to such a health center, they have the right and full complement of health workers that treat you with dignity, with respect, right? You go in there, you are well greeted, and by the time they attend to you and you leave that health facility, you look back and say, wow, that is fantastic. I can't believe that I'm actually living in a primary healthcare center. I can't even believe that I am living, the foundational aspects of our health system. We want to have those types of primary healthcare system. So we are harmonizing and streamlining all the resources. Instead of disparate investment, government does this, the donors do this, the partners do this, the private sector. We have brought everybody together and say, what is it that we need as a minimum to make sure that we have in every political world one functional primary healthcare center. Right now, when you go to our primary healthcare centers, you see some level of service. So what we're saying is, we're not there yet. Instead of having maybe a situation where you have 10 cars and none of them is working, right? You have to push each and every one. How about starting with fixing one car, making sure it is functional, and then you gradually move to when you fix all 10 cars, but making sure that there is a clear alignment around what the vision is. We want to recognize the great work that our governors are doing, local government chairmen are also doing, but we also want to send out a clear message that it is not just about the infrastructure. There's a lot of focus on renovating and building primary healthcare centers, but you build them, if you don't recruit the competent health workers, then they are going to be there, right? They'll be invaded by goats and reptiles. So the first and the most important thing is to make sure that in your primary healthcare system, anywhere in your state, that you have the full complement of health workers that can deliver their services. As a matter of fact, if I were to talk about the extreme, you can deliver primary healthcare services in one room, but you need a health worker that knows what they are doing, a health worker that will deliver the quality service and do it in a way that is compassionate. Those are the things that we want to focus on. It's not about having 20,000 primary healthcare centers in your state. It's about the quality of those primary healthcare centers. And the first level is to make sure that you don't have 100,000 health workers in your employment. But out of these 100,000 health workers, how many of them have the right certification? They have the right qualification. They have the right attitude. They have the right motivation to get the job done. If they don't, then you need to streamline them. Those who are not supposed to be in the primary healthcare space, you can deploy them into other sectors where they can really be utilized. They can be retrained and work in other sectors. But health is so specific that you need people that have the right training, because you never know, you could retire to a village and then you'll be responsible, for the kind of service that you get in your primary healthcare center. If as a leader you do not do anything about that primary healthcare center, well, when you are in your 60s or 70s or 80s, you will go back and meet that primary healthcare center that you refuse to invest in. So the message is very clear, it's unequivocal. Human resources, human resources, human resources.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Faisal. Dr. Walter Kuzadi, if you're still with us, let's hear more from you about the chain of operation as this exercise continues. You're in Kano already, and of course I wish you all the best as you take up your assignment of meeting, the Emir of Kano and some other notables in Kano. But while that is ongoing, can we hear your views about this chain of operation, looking at, the starting point to the end product, where you have the cold chain, you have the personnel as being put forward by Dr. Faisal, and then where you have, the children being brought forward. If this happens, what incentives are there? What incentives are there, most likely, if we're lucky to have you on? What incentives are there in order to encourage, parents to bring out their children to get vaccinated against Rota disease? And how strong is that?
Thank you. First of all, I'm sorry I was disconnected. First of all, I wanted to add my voice to what Dr. Faisal was mentioning about primary health care. And from WHO perspective, as you know, primary health care is really, rather than a system to deliver health services at the grassroots level, primary health care is really an approach in a whole government undertaking, in a whole of society undertaking. It has several components. So if we look at primary health care as an endeavor of the Ministry of Health, then that will be the beginning of our issues. We are talking about multi-sector policy and action. It's not just the Ministry of Health, it's the Ministry of Finance and other ministries. Different donors that are supporting PHC in Nigeria are also interacting with different ministries. Bringing those ministries at grassroots level, it's important so that they harmonize the policies and action. And the second component is community empowerment. That's where the traditional leaders really a role to play. I would like to congratulate Faisal and his team for organizing this traditional leader quarterly meeting. We hope to join the one from the Northwest Zone, another zone when they are organized. And the last component is to have integration of services and public health functions. Disease outbreaks start in the community, in communities, and end in communities. So we need to empower the communities and to address the issues of shortage humanity, implementing task shifting, and we can also use community mobilizers to deliver some of lower level function and free the time for healthcare workers. And we also need to bring the community to disease surveillance and response. The number of deaths, to come to your question, the number of deaths that we will avert by rolling out the rotavirus vaccination, it's in itself an incentive if it's well articulated. The recognition is an incentive, so we can tap into different type of incentives, not necessarily monetary. Recognition, access to training, capacity building are all form of incentive that we could tap on. And I'm really looking forward to discussing with the Emir of Kano to see what the community might be expecting for them to contribute to this public health undertaking, which is worth pursuing. So, listening to the community is also an important element as we plan to roll out the public health intervention. So, I look very much forward to the outcome of this interaction. I'm sure it will feed back into the discussion we're having now. Over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malambo. Will you still be there because we have another topic to discuss with you? Let me come back to the studio. Dr. Eduardo, everything has a time frame. Briefly, in 30 seconds, what's the time frame for this program you're having now?
So for rotavirus, now we are so it's already rolled out in the Northwest, North Central and Northeast. In the next month, it's going to be rolled out as well to the Southeast and Southwest. So we'll have, by this year, we'll have all Nigeria covered with rotavirus vaccine. But as well, this is a long-term vision, right? So where we are going. In one side, we are strengthening the primary healthcare system. This is a much more longer-term vision because we need to train health workers, etc. But as well, we are planning jointly with Dr. Faisal's team to introduce new vaccines into the country. So we really hope that next year we'll have HPV in the country. We hope that you will invite us here to talk about that. And as well, even more important, we hope that hopefully next year as well to have some malaria vaccine available in the country.
Dr. Watson, 30 seconds. Talk to your people.
I think I always speak to the caregivers, the mothers, and other stakeholders who are taking care of the children. Take your children to the nearest health facility to for rotavirus vaccination. If you are not able to bring the child, please monitor the outreach services in your community when they bring the vaccine. And beyond this, please take other vaccines. It's extremely important. COVID vaccine is real. COVID-19 is real. The vaccination is effective. Most of the people that die from COVID are not vaccinated. Don't be the next person. Go and take your vaccine. If you are even late, and it's available free of charge.
Okay.
Rotavirus is free of charge. Mothers, caregivers, please take your child today. Don't be late.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Issei Hayavotsa, the Acting Executive Secretary, FCT Primary Healthcare Board. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And a big thank you also to Dr. Eduardo Celades, UNICEF Nigeria Chief of Health. We thank you so much for being part of this very segment of the program. And we shall invite you next again as you requested whenever the time is up.
Thank you.
Well, we will now take a break. When we come back from the break, we will be discussing 3 years anniversary of wild polio virus eradication in Nigeria. One stay back.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, feel fresh, and feel fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
Ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government and it is deserving of all the applause.
It has great taste.
Is there a head?
Yummy, yummy, full of nourishment. Vitality there, shop Nigeria.
Ovaltine 3-in-1. Smart choice for smart kids.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Welcome back, and it's a Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We begin at the second segment of our interviews. It's been 3 years of Nigeria officially certified polio-free, and this didn't come very cheap. It took years of advocacy and enhanced vaccination to achieve the feat. Nigeria now attained wild polio-free status after meeting all the criteria for certification, which include 3 years of non-detection of any wild polio virus case in the country. Well, it's a tale of good news in the health sector. We still have in the studio briefly. Yes, Dr. Malumba is still in Kano, and I believe he was part of the partners that congratulated Nigeria in 2020 for being polio-free. It's been 3 years. Where are we on that now, and what is the step forward?
Thank you for your question. Nigeria is still wide poliovirus free till today. Nigeria is facing another type of polio outbreak, which is the vaccine-derived polio outbreak, which is a result of the attenuated vaccine seeding and mutating in the community, where you find a certain proportion of children who are immunized. But Nigeria is also working to suppress transmission of that type of polio. But it has nothing to do with wild polio virus. Nigeria is still certified polio-free, as is the rest of Africa. We've supported the government to rebuild the capacity to address polio transmission, and the transmission of the vaccine-derived polio has been reduced by 80% compared to last year, which is very good news, particularly as the teams have been able to strengthen the surveillance and the capacity for outbreak response. The quality of outbreak response campaign have improved. So here we are, but we need to remain vigilant, because in Malawi and in Mozambique, there were cases of importation of wild polio virus, which are silly to the endemic, the last two endemic countries, Pakistan in particular, and we need to remain vigilant. So no reason to be worried, I might say, for now, as far as remaining polio-free. But we need to be cautious and continue the job until certain the job is done. You know that there's a new polio endgame strategy 2022-2026, and which target elimination of all forms of polio, both wild poliovirus, but also vaccine-derived poliovirus. So this is what I can say for now as to where Nigeria is with respect to polio certification and free status. Over.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mulombo. Dr. Faisal, by tomorrow exactly, it will be 3 years marking, or talking about 3 good years of getting polio out of Nigeria. But that sounds like Maybe some people will say 3 years, are we not having cases of polio now? What does that translate to? 3 years anniversary. What does it really mean? Are there no polio cases in Nigeria? Are we out of it? Because from what we've read, Ghana, we are the last continent on Africa, is mainly Afghanistan, and is it the Pakistan or the country? That's on the whole worldwide planet. What does that translate to? No more polio in Nigeria?
What it means is there's no more wild type of polio virus. It means we no longer have naturally occurring wild polio virus in Nigeria. So there are two different things here. So what we're saying is that in our environment, there are polio viruses that exist naturally. We no longer have that. However, because of low childhood immunization in some parts of the country, we have seen a mutation, a change in the nature of polio viruses that has led to what we call circulating variant polio viruses. Yes. The closest example is what we are seeing with COVID-19, where we have closely followed how COVID-19, we had alpha variant, beta, delta, and omicron, right? Yes. So it's similar to that with the polio virus. We have variants that can also cause paralysis. But just like the WHO country rep said, we had this outbreak last year. We mounted an impressive response, and we have reduced by more than 80% the numbers of these types of viruses. So we did house-to-house campaigns, working with the states, with the governors, commissioners, executive secretaries, to make sure that these viruses did not go to an extent where it will be completely uncontrollable. So 3 years anniversary without a single case of wild polio virus means 3 years since the global community led by WHO certified Nigeria as wild polio virus free. But in actual fact, it's been 6 years since the last case of wild polio virus was detected in Nigeria. The last case of wild polio virus was seen in 2016 in Borno State. Now, a year after that, there was still no polio virus because of our response in 2016. That 1 year after 2016 is what we describe as evidence of interrupting any form of circulation. So Nigeria interrupted wild polio virus circulation in 2017, right? And then we now calculate 3 years after that, and that is where we arrived at evidence, because people had to come from the WHO regional office. There's a committee that goes and looks around. When you say there's no wild polio virus, does it mean that there's no wild polio virus, or is it that you are not looking for it, right?
Are you looking for it?
Absolutely. So that is what they look out for, right? They look out to see, okay, we say there's no wild polio viruses, but is there evidence that we are actually looking for the virus and it is not there in the community? So it's just like somebody comes to Abuja and say, oh, I did not see Jume, I did not see Nairobi. You have to ask them, is there evidence that they have actually looked for you people in the right places? Have they come to NTA? Have they come to the places where you people should be? It's the same methodology. They had to look around, check, for example, in healthy children to see if they are harboring the virus. They checked in our sewage, in our environment, to see if there's evidence that the virus might be in the environment, but we've not picked it up. That is why the surveillance level is very, very important. What gives us confidence that we don't have wild polio viruses is because our surveillance indicators, all of the things that we do to check for the wild polio viruses in humans, in the environment, shows that there is none, right? So there's no wild polio virus, but we have circulating variant polio viruses that have occurred due to naturally occurring mutation. It's a normal genetic, sort of activity that occurs with viruses. That is what caused the outbreak since 2018, but again, we've seen a tapering down, and we're hopeful that with the collaborations with our traditional leaders, with our religious leaders, with subnational, that will continue to maintain that. So the heroes of the polio fight has got to be the frontline workers, right? They have gone, crossed rivers, climbed mountains to reach every single child.
Sometimes threatened.
Absolutely, in even insecure. That is one of the reasons why the Northeast was one of the last places where we eradicated wild polio viruses, because health workers had to go to places where their lives were threatened, right? They had to work with traditional leaders, with religious leaders, to understand and know how they can approach some of these areas. And then our military were also very gallant, because it's very easy to give the oral polio drops. So the military were able to also vaccinate some of the kids in the security compromised areas. So the wild polio virus eradication effort is really an effort around solidarity between government, partners, donors, but also every single member of the community. So this was a glaring example of where Nigerians came together to eradicate a disease that has been with us for a very long time. Exactly. And this,
huge devastation.
Yes, absolutely. And it is the lessons that we're learning, what we've learned from the white polio virus, that is what we're using to now introduce other vaccines, like the Rota virus vaccines that we talked about. And the fact that we know vaccines work, we've eradicated a disease, white polio virus. Now we're going to be introducing the human papilloma virus vaccine next year in 2023. The human papilloma virus is what causes cervical cancer. And Nigeria has one of the second highest rate of cervical cancer in the whole of Africa, right? So, for example, there was a study that was done in 2018 in West Africa, and there were about 32,000 cases of cervical cancer. Almost half of these cases were in Nigeria. In Nigeria, as of 2018, and really not much has changed since then.
Quite alarming.
Yes, 28 women die every day due to cervical cancer. So imagine what it means when we introduce the vaccine next year. It is huge. It's very, very important. So there may not be a lot of noise that is made about what's happening in the health sector, in the primary healthcare space, is because these are quiet battles that we are winning against diseases. If we're able to introduce the human papilloma virus vaccine next year, it will protect women from cervical cancer. And cervical cancer is a big deal. 250 women out of every 100,000 women
die.
Yes, die from cervical cancer. So it's very, very, very important that we're introducing this, and then of course the malaria vaccine as well that we're going to be introducing next year.
You're quite excited about it.
Absolutely. This is what we live for.
Yeah, exactly. Let's join Dr. Walumba, as the program begins to wind down, and see ways that UNICEF and WHO will continue to help Nigerians strengthening the primary health care.
Aaron, would you like to repeat again?
I'm asking, in the long term, with all these successes being recorded, in what ways can you continue, as the World Health Organization, continue to help Nigerians in strengthening the primary health care?
Thank you. As I said before, primary health care is an approach. It's a whole of government approach and the whole of society undertaking. So it's very important that the other sector ministries understand that they have a role to play. For instance, how many policy documents outside health mention primary health care in the policy document at all? Whether the security, administration, the territory, whether finance, agriculture, and other. So we need to start building that in the system. And WHO, one of the things we will be doing differently is going really and truly beyond the Ministry of Health to try and gain momentum and endorsement of what health is doing. COVID-19 has taught us that health is crucial to everything we do. We have started, we have engaged with the Minister of Finance, we have engaged and we are engaging still with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Minister of Women Affairs, and others. We are engaging with governors and traditional leaders. We want to really push that message, because that's where we think we can make a difference, and trying to use our extensive presence, being in every state in Nigeria, to try and negotiate a broker relationship between different agencies, government agencies, bringing on board the private sector through public-private partnership. And as you know, the private sector in Nigeria deliver over 70% of healthcare, so we may not achieve objective or PSC if we don't use them. In some states, it may mean helping the government to regulate private sector intervention. In others, is trying to get private sector engaging in overseeing some of the primary healthcare centers. So we have a huge opportunity out there, and WHO really will continue to expand our portfolio to make sure that it really becomes a whole of government and whole of society approach, rather than it being NTA, CDA, and Ministry of Health alone, or with the counterpart at the state level. It has to be really everybody, and I would like to call upon you to, for the media community, to really engage in that discourse, so that everybody contribute to that piece. We don't have any other way to do it. It's a partnership, the whole of government, all of society, building on community empowerment, and trying to integrate different intervention. When I visited one of the states, I saw some of the adverts. We're mentioning, some highway to link the largest market in Africa to the rest of Nigeria. I told the governor in that state that if while building this type of highway, you could think of every 5 kilometers putting a high quality primary health care center on the road, it will send already a message that we are not only concerned about the road, but as you are building the road, we are also looking into strengthening primary health care health system. So that's really the way to go, and that's the direction I'm engaging WHO here in Nigeria, and I'm sure we'll have a success story to tell the rest of the world. Over.
Thank you so much, thank you, Dr. Walter Kazadi Mulombo. Thank you, and I wish you all the best in your engagement in Kano. Walter Kazadi is the Blue World Health Organization country representative in Nigeria. He's in Kano on a mission for this very cause. Thank you so much. Now, let's come back to the studio here once again, and then finally, I must say, and round up this program, Dr. Faisal. There have been pains, as you mentioned, in trying to attain or rather reach here 3 years after world polio virus. The gains are much, which means there's a party in the air. If you're happy, feeling great. How do we keep on partying along that line about talking about wild polio virus? How can we maintain this success? How do we consolidate on these gains? What are the efforts being placed, or what are the measures? Finally, maybe in a minute or so.
Right. So for everything that we do as humans, we cannot lose sight of the challenges that exist. But we also have to recognize and acknowledge the efforts that have gone into the little gains that we observe, right? So here we are 3 years down the line, post-wild polio virus eradication, and we're using this as an opportunity to honor those who gave their lives, those who are the heroes of the wild polio virus eradication effort. So we do recognize that there's a lot that needs to be done, right? But we thought this 3rd year anniversary is a time, for that recognition for those who paid the ultimate price, but also for our traditional leaders, religious leaders, our health workers, so many leaders that stood firm to make sure that no child in Nigeria ever gets paralyzed from the white polio virus ever again. But it's also an opportunity for us to look at what it is that we have within the system that can ensure that we deliver primary healthcare services to people in our communities. This is why we are very excited about the fact that many governors are now coming on board when it comes to rolling out our community health workers program. In 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari launched the CHIPS program, Community Health Influencers Promoters Services, where community people, young ladies and men in the communities are recruited under the guidance of the traditional leaders. They are given the skills to be able to go from house to house to treat simple ailments, malaria, simple injuries, right? Over time, we've seen states that have really adopted this and is beginning to have a positive impact in terms of reducing the number of women and children that are dying from perfectly preventable causes because they are educating people in our communities. It's very, very important that as any society develops, they don't leave behind those who are the weakest and the most vulnerable. And this is why we're very excited about what the future portends for us.
For the malaria vaccine, I don't like taking drugs, actually.
Unfortunately, you have the kid. This is for just the kids. Maybe later the adults will get it.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal Shaib, the Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, National Primary Health Care Development Agency. Thank you so much for bringing to the, to light all the things you've been doing and how Nigerians can key into whatever it is you're bringing out. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us again tomorrow for another interesting edition. I am Jumbo Yusuf.
And I'm Mr. Narabus. We say and have a great day. See you tomorrow.